Bright red cardinal on the hillside outside. The smell of coffee filling the house on an early fall morning. A hug from my not-so-little boy. A perfectly timed text from a faraway friend. And scripture filling my mind as I pray through tears for loved ones in crisis. Grace gifts, all of them. They're part of a list that started over a decade ago. A list that is sometimes written down, sometimes prayed through words, and sometimes just held in the recesses of my heart. Over a decade ago, learning about gratitude absolutely changed my life. And so when Pastor Bo asked me if I would be willing to do a devotional for this series, my answer was a quick yes. What was much harder was choosing what to share. There's just so much that I'd love to share with you. There's so much of me that so many of you don't know. And you don't know this story yet, so it was hard for me to narrow down where to go. So I've been praying and praying, and I've been asking the Spirit to lead me and let me know what direction I needed to go for this. What direction should I take? And the answer, when it came, it was quiet and it was clear. Just tell your story. Go back to Eucharisteo. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share with you just a tiny piece of how this practice began for me. It started with a book you may be familiar with. It's called 1,000 Gifts, and it's by Ann Voskamp. And she starts early in the book with one short verse. It's Luke 22:19. And he took bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In her beautiful book, Anne shares about the original language. And one thing you all don't know about me yet is I am just an absolute word nerd. I love the meanings of things. I love learning about the history and reading and studying, and I love language and what we can learn when we dig into it. I think that sometimes things just go deeper, and things we thought we knew, maybe we don't. That's how it was for me with gratitude. Anne tells her readers in her book that the words "he gave thanks," they come from one Greek word, and that word is Eucharisteo. The word means thanksgiving. The root word is charis, which means grace. In Anne's words, Jesus took the bread and saw it as grace and gave thanks. He took the bread and knew it to be gift, and he gave thanks. There is more to this word. Eucharisteo's root is in charis, which means grace, but the word also envelops the derivative, the Greek word chara, which means joy. Anne goes on to share her own journey and how God brought this word to life for her in her own life. She shares about how that deep chara joy is only found at the table of Eucharisteo, the table of thanksgiving. There's a line in the book that she comes back to again and again, and now I do too. As long as thanks is possible, joy is always possible. Grace, gratitude, joy, all held in the one word, Eucharisteo. If you know anything about the book, you know that Anne's journey to live out this concept of Eucharisteo, it began with the naming of gifts, writing down a few things each day with the initial goal of naming 1,000 gifts. That grew into a whole different way of living. I started naming gifts too, over a decade ago, and it has changed me. It was small at first. I had babies and toddlers then, and looking for the small gifts in the everyday moments began to change how I spent my days with them. I paused more and I stayed in the moment. I let the awe and wonder and delight wash over me and linger a little longer. And it didn't just change the way I opened my hands in thanks for the good gifts. It changed the harder days too. It changed the way I cared for my mom during her terminal illness and how I processed her early death over 7 years ago. Gratitude, it can change everything if we let it. Remembering that Jesus took the bread that represented his body on the night before he would be murdered by the violence and sin of our humanity, and he gave thanks, that changes what I'm willing to say thank you for. He gave thanks before he broke it, and out of the breaking, the miracle of communion, the abundance of his one life laid down for all the world, symbolized in that first breaking. That was all preceded by his Eucharisteo, his giving thanks. Anne writes often, Eucharisteo precedes the miracle. I've come to know that that's true. My gratitude, it comes before the abundance, because it's the thanking, it's the pausing and noticing and taking time to honor the one who gives the graces that leads to deep and lasting joy. But I don't always remember this. I don't always write gifts down. Days, weeks, sometimes months go by. I don't always reflect on how Jesus gave thanks before demonstrating how his own body would be broken for us. I wrote something that I came across recently. I wrote this about 5 years ago. And I think these words still hold true. They're still true for me today. I wrote, God knows we are people who get complacent with the constant, apathetic about what's comfortable, ungrateful for the expected. Like the Israelites in the desert, grumbling about their manna, their life-sustaining bread from heaven, and asking for more. And isn't it true with me too? I have life-sustaining broken bread from heaven, the Christ alive in me, his Spirit to guide me. And I grumble. I ask for more. I want, and when I get, I grasp too tightly, and I want more. My God, he knows this about me, knows this tendency to hold too tightly, to fear the losing. So he teaches gently. My textbooks are blue jays and leaves and clouds and sunsets, rainbows and glances and hugs from little ones not so little now. These are only fully experienced in the moment. Try to grasp at any one of them and hold it longer, it wriggles away and fades and becomes memory. But committing them to memory, naming graces, this is how a moment really lasts. I revisit the pictures in my mind and they are vivid and alive. And with each passing gift that I embrace with eyes and heart wide open, I learn to live more fully alive. The awe and wonder, they fall fresh and new each time the gifts come. And what remains as they depart is deep gratitude for all that is, all that was, and all that is yet to be. Sometimes I forget, I get graspy and ungrateful, and it steals my joy away. It's a spiritual discipline, this naming of gifts. It has to be practiced until it becomes a part of us, a part of me. And even then, to stay present and grateful and joyful, it takes intentionality. But it isn't hard. It's as easy as looking up and looking out, taking a deep breath in and letting it out slow. What do you see? What do you smell, hear, taste, touch, sense in this moment? Is there something you can say thank you for? This is an easy way to reorient ourselves toward the giver, toward our God. As long as thanks is possible, joy is always possible. Real, deep, abiding joy, even on the worst days. Today's a hard day. Today I got word that a friend will go be with Jesus, and I thought about not recording this today. I thought about waiting, didn't know how to talk about joy and gratitude when I could hardly pull myself together. But I remembered that I was telling you that deep joy is always possible when the good gifts are given and when the seemingly awful passes into our days. Jesus is the always and forever good gift that brings our heart deep joy. And it is possible to live in the tension between the two. It is possible to live in the both and of grief and gratitude, of loss and joy. It's possible. Wherever thanks is possible, whenever we can reorient our hearts to the giver of life, joy is always possible. I believe that. And so I needed to tell you today about my journey with gratitude and how it's changed me. My prayer for you as you move into this week and into the rest of this Thanksgiving season and on toward Advent and Christmas is that you'll take a moment to pause, to see what's around you, to really see, to really hear, to really experience the presence of our God in every moment. And that will lead you to deep gratitude, to real, lasting joy, so that you can experience the miracle of Eucharisteo, because it's there. Thanks for joining us here today. I'm praying for you all. I'm grateful for this community. You're on my list too. Have a great day.